Stop! Don't come in. Don't you know the term, living within your means? Don't you think it's such a waste for just 2 people to live in this house? From today, we'll live here for you. If you don't want to live with us, you can leave. Oh, but you'll still have to pay. We're going through a tough time right now. Families should look out for one another, right? With that, Margaret patted my shoulder. I looked at her with utter disdain. I am Sarah, 28 years old. I've always loved to study and enjoyed learning new things. I got into a prestigious high school in my hometown and was living a happy life. However, during my 3rd year of junior high, on a snowy day, a car accident took both of my parents away from me. I had to arrange their funeral, and after all the procedures that I had to outsource since I was too young to know anything, there wasn't much insurance money left. With no relatives to turn to, I was advised to go to a facility, but I learned that I could only stay there for about 3 years, so I started looking for live-in jobs. The jobs available for junior high graduates who needed lodging were limited. Still, I was able to get a job at an inn that offered accommodation. They strictly taught me the basics and the customer service skills. The seniors and the madam were strict yet kind to me, even though I knew nothing. The boss's daughter became attached to me, and we spent our days like family. 10 years later, I was handling my job well and had saved up quite a bit of money. I had a dream. I worked hard to achieve it. I was praised by the madam for my excellent skills, and I was put in charge of serving customers. I met Ken when I served him while he was being somewhat nervous. Drawn to his gentle and polite demeanor, we dated for a year before deciding to get married. But getting married was not straightforward. I thought there might be a chance his family would object. It would be disappointing, but understandable. Considering my background, the long-established family business he had might dispute our marriage. But the reality was 100 times more malicious than I imagined. A middle school dropout, and not particularly impressive. Those were the first words the sister-in-law said to me when we first met. Shocked, I dropped my bag and made a loud noise.
Hey, what are you saying, sis?
Ken retorted, but this was just the beginning. I heard you dropped out of middle school and don't have parents. Those words did not even have a hint of kindness nor comfort. It was just plainly cold and condescending. Not to boast, but everyone in our family graduated from a decent university.
I don't want blood of a middle school dropout in our family.
I looked at Ken in disbelief, but he didn't seem like he was going to defend me. If you had no parents, you probably don't know the proper way to cook nor to do laundry, right?
We also deal with our family business. Our children can handle it, but I wonder if our family is too much for a middle school dropout like you.
I could hear the sister-in-law's scornful laughter from behind. After their barrage of insults, there was a moment of silence before I was about to retaliate. But Ken spoke up first.
Dad, Mom, please stop. Sure, she didn't finish school and isn't extremely pretty, but she works and knows how to do basic things, since she works at an inn. Being older, she can cook fairly well and handle household chores. Didn't I explain where she works? The inn's owner likes her, and she is essential for our family business. Don't you remember?
He then squeezed my hand and silently assured me it was going to be okay. But I felt something was off. It sounded as if he was marrying me because the inn's owner liked me. After those harsh words from his parents, I was numb. I had the illusion that Ken was on my side and we could be happy together. I wanted to get their approval before getting married. Ken said we could just ask the inn's owner to vouch for us. So I asked the owner to call Ken's family. Apparently, his parents are weak to powerful people. After the owner's call, they immediately approved our marriage. I remember being shocked by their sudden change of heart. My best friend was concerned and asked if I was sure about the marriage. I've always seen you work hard. I think of you like a sister and I want you to be happy. Emily, who was the same age as Ken and had known him for a long time, worried I might be deceived as her image of Ken didn't match mine. After our marriage, Ken and I lived happily together for a while. He enjoyed my cooking and we often expressed gratitude to each other, creating warm moments. I continued working at the inn and occasionally helped at the family business. Life was good. But then my mother-in-law fell down the stairs and fractured a bone. Given our previous interactions, I tried to minimize contact with Ken's family. With a sister-in-law living with them, I didn't take this incident too seriously. But then Ken proposed something outrageous.
Mom broke her bone, right? I think this is a good opportunity for us to live together.
One day, Ken suddenly told me this after returning from work. We had never discussed living with his family before. Being told something like that all of a sudden is troubling. After all, there are lease renewals of this apartment and I have a job too. Your sister already lives there. I could maybe help by visiting. As I was suggesting alternatives, while feeling perplexed, a sudden loud noise made me stiffen. It was the sound of Ken slamming the table.
What? I'm the eldest son. Do you think I could just leave everything to others?
Ken, who was always gentle and calm, seemed like a completely different person, and I was completely stunned. No, that's not it.
Isn't it? I took in an orphan like you, and we even faced opposition to our marriage. Don't you think you should contribute a little? I wouldn't ask to be buttered up or anything, but maybe your thinking doesn't go that far because you only graduated from middle school?
I couldn't say anything in response to Ken's unusual demeanor. He seemed like a complete thug. I was probably trembling, but then Ken hugged me as he always did. Normally, such moments would make me happy. However, at that time, all I felt was fear.
Sorry for speaking so harshly. I got irritated because you were a bit clueless. It's your fault, but if you do as I say, everything will be fine. You must feel anxious, so let's just try this arrangement until my mom recovers.
He acted as if he was compromising and being gentle, and this slowly ate into me. I decided to help out, thinking it would put me in a position to be appreciated and potentially improve my relationship with Ken's family. By the end of the month, I managed to organize our belongings, handle administrative procedures while working, and finally moved. On the day I moved to my in-laws' home, the words my mother-in-law told me were enough to break my heart. Just because you're helping out doesn't mean your status will change. Remember, you're a disgraceful middle school graduate and are at the lowest position in this household. Naturally, you'll be the last to take a bath. I stood frozen in place, cold sweat dripping down my back, barely able to breathe. My ability to breathe grew even more strained each day living with my in-laws. Though I felt fine at work, at home I struggled to breathe and felt suffocated. I was unable to smile naturally and started to make many mistakes at work. Emily was concerned for me. Despite her deep concern, I had no choice but to say, I'm fine, feeling guilty for pushing through with the marriage. But sleepless nights from stress took a toll on my health. Because I didn't want to cause trouble for anyone, I resigned from my job, saying I had to take care of my mother-in-law. I should have said a proper goodbye, but I had no energy to even leave the house. And so began my days of doing household chores and being insulted. How many times do I have to tell you? The food is too salty. Do you want to make us sick? You can't even cook properly.
I thought it tasted fine, but maybe I just got used to it. You're lucky, Sarah, to learn cooking from Mom.
Your cleaning is always not perfect.
So much for marrying a maid, right?
Ken's hurtful words grew worse over time. The once kind-hearted Ken was nowhere to be found. Though it was supposed to be temporary, living with the in-laws showed no signs of ending. My mother-in-law energetically went out to enjoy hula dancing. Ken began referring to me as plain and dark and started to bar hop, saying he felt suffocated at home. One day, dressed more glamorously and wearing heavy makeup than usual, she said, I won't be coming home tonight. My sister-in-law, Jessica, almost 31. Recently, she's been active in going to matchmaking events. She used to be sarcastic about my marriage, but her mood improved, likely due to finding someone, and her results lessened. Since no one was home, I decided to take a long bath. It was much more relaxing than when I took a shower last. I was enjoying a rare moment of peace when suddenly the bathroom door slammed open. I found Jessica standing there. It can be seen in an instant her date was a disaster. Get out, slowpoke! she yelled, pulling me out of the tub. She forced me, naked, outside the bathroom, throwing my clothes at my face. Then my father-in-law was also home. When I realized the gravity of the situation, it was too late. Robert was standing right behind me. Robert looked me up and down.
What's this? I thought it would be a nice view, but my useless daughter-in-law is just a bony old hag. No wonder Ken doesn't stay at home.
Filled with shame, anger, and a mix of emotions, I rushed into my room. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. Lately, due to stress and being so busy, I haven't been eating properly. I knew that, but I looked like a skeleton, with dry hair with no expression. Looking at my reflection, I quietly cried for the first time since moving into my in-laws. I must have cried for about an hour before Ken came home.
Whoa, you scared me. I thought you were some kind of a weeping ghost.
After he left, I told him about what had happened earlier.
Seriously? That's hilarious. Even my dad made fun of you.
He just laughed it off. Something inside me snapped. Why am I putting up with this? What have these past few years been for? I vowed in my heart to take revenge on my laughing husband. Just then, Emily called. I hadn't been out for a while, so when I tried on my clothes, I noticed I lost so much weight that my pants no longer fit. I decided to wear a dress that Ken chose for me. The moment Emily saw me, she hugged me, crying, "I should have come to see you, even if you didn't want me to." She comforted me with her kind words and said she has something important to tell me, so she booked a private room. What Emily shared was astonishing, but to me it felt like I had gained a weapon for my revenge. I told Emily everything, what had happened recently and what I wanted to do next. "I'll support you in any way I can. There are many that will do the same. We're going to get your happiness back." Hearing this, I couldn't help but genuinely smile. When was the last time I had smiled like this? It felt so good. It made me cry. After returning home, I did the usual chores. Margaret complained as always, but it didn't bother me. I told Ken we needed to talk. He seemed very reluctant. I showed him some pictures. He looked genuinely shaken, but then started to ramble.
I just played around with someone I met while going out with friends. My wife is uneducated, clumsy, older, and can't manage the house properly. Never smiles either. I hated being at home.
So, it's my fault?
Yes, that's right. I had no choice.
Fine, let's divorce then. We'll have to apologize to the president who's been like a parent to me. He even acted as a matchmaker for us. You'll pay compensation, split the assets, and I'll seek compensation from this woman too. Staring at me as if I was an alien, he shouted,
"You think you can suddenly act all high and mighty?"
and struck me. He must have realized he had gone too far. "I have all this in recording. I'm done with you. If you don't want a divorce, then we'll stop living together. I'll leave by Saturday." Given that the majority of his family business's profits came from the inn that were made by the president that was looking out for me, Ken had no escape. I was already packed to avoid any issues moving out. I made Ken inform his family that I was leaving that day. As expected, they sat at the breakfast table all waiting to be served. Looking at the three of them, I couldn't stop my grin.
I want to end this living arrangement. It was Sarah who made breakfast for me. You should have been more grateful.
Everyone started to hurl insults.
Enough! We are leaving. It's important. Everyone should take care of their own matters. Let's go, Sarah,
he said, pulling my hand. For a moment I wished he had done this earlier. I shook off his hand. We probably won't see each other again. The useless woman will be gone. Goodbye. Saying that, I walked out the door. We stayed in a hotel for a while. A few days later, Ken didn't return to the hotel. After waiting a day, I checked the corporate bank account and saw that all the money was withdrawn. Realizing Ken had fled, my hands trembled seeing there was nothing left. A few months passed and I resumed my job at the inn. The money I had saved for my dream was untouched. Using that money, I bought a small house. It was a property I had noticed on the day I met with Emily. It reminded me of the house where I lived with my family when I was young. I wanted to restart my life here. The next day after Ken left, I called the property management company and, a few weeks later, successfully purchased the house. One holiday while in the garden, I heard a familiar voice. Sarah, it's good to see you're doing well. The ones who entered the premises were my former in-laws, all three of them. What are you all doing here? I spoke coldly, and the three of them seemed surprised, but their arrogant attitude didn't change.
This is a pretty good house. We heard you got a new place, so we decided to visit. We went to the inn first, but it was closed. Where's Ken?
As speaking, he opened the door and went in. Hey, stop. You're not welcome. Isn't this house too big for just the two of you? It's such a waste. We'll move in for you starting today. If you don't want to live with us, then you should leave. Oh, but you'll still have to pay for everything. You were poor from the beginning. You can live anywhere, right? We're in a tough spot right now. Families should look after one another, don't you think? I glared at my former mother-in-law with contempt. These people didn't see how rude they are. They ignored me stopping them and just kept going inside. But there's no way they can barge into my life again. Well, I did want to help if you still were my family. At that moment, the sound of sirens reached our ears. It was the police. I called the police. How dare you barge into someone's home? Sarah, get away from them. It's dangerous. Who are these people anyway? The voice shouting from the luxurious stairs was Emily's. This was Emily's house. It's true that I bought a new house nearby, but today I was visiting Emily. Amidst the sirens, the former in-laws seemed unable to understand what's happening.
What do you mean by, if you were still my family?
Don't you know Ken and I are divorced? And the family business you were so proud of collapsed because Ken ran away with all the money. Didn't you know any of this? Too bad you didn't. Maybe this was just too much happening even for a college graduate to understand. I said with a smile, watching my ex-in-laws' pale faces. Emily continued her impressive act. Huh? Are you the family of Sarah's ex-husband? You followed her all the way here? That's scary. The police rushed in just as Emily exclaimed loudly. Officer, these people seem to be stalking her and entered our house without permission. Emily shouted from a room with wide open windows. Her voice and the sirens drew a crowd, including neighbors. The in-laws were well known in the neighboring town as they had been in business for generations. Many locals recognized them.
Isn't that the son of that shop owner?
That's what an old man said, and everyone looked at Robert. Although the former father-in-law didn't understand the situation, the three of them were pushed into the police car and taken away.
We might need to question you again.
Having been told that by the police officer, I felt relieved watching the police car taking the former in-laws into the distance. That day, Emily and I drank until dawn. We were celebrating. Almost everything went according to plan. I had a feeling that the in-laws might show up someday. Ever since I reunited with Emily, I had a plan. I wanted to leave the in-laws' house peacefully and get Ken to sign the divorce papers. I didn't want to be tied down any more than we already were. So I told Ken that if we didn't live separately from his family, we would divorce. I said I'd submit the divorce papers on the specified day if we didn't separate. On the day we decided to separate, I showed Ken a fake divorce paper and ripped it in front of him. I had intentionally left a decent amount of money in one of the company accounts, left the bank card in a place easily found, and transferred the rest to my account. I said I didn't need the money, but Emily told me I should take it. In a way, his pathetic behavior helped my plan. Turns out the woman Ken had been cheating, saying that he was single, was Emily's friend. Emily's friend thought Ken was single, and they were talking about getting married. I didn't ask for compensation for the affair, but I lured her that she would, and when Ken saw the amount of compensation, he ran away. Surprisingly, that friend was the daughter of the CEO of the company where the former sister-in-law worked. Even in a relatively large town, you should assume you're always connected with someone close by. It's probably a countryside thing. The sister-in-law didn't know about Ken's affair, but suspicion fell on her. The company did a background check, and it was found that she had forcibly invited young male employees to dinner and had been harassing them, so she was urged to resign voluntarily. The father-in-law was also receiving some of the profits from the family business as a salary for a management position in name only. But since Ken ran away with the company money, the money stopped coming in, which brought the current situation to the family. Later on, the three of them were released after spending about 2 days in detention because they mistakenly trespassed, but it was their first time, and no one got injured. However, it was unlikely that they could maintain living in the large house they had been living in, so they are now living in a small rundown apartment, constantly fighting. Even though all of them had higher education, the 65-year-old former father-in-law, the 60-year-old former mother-in-law that has never had a job before, and the former sister-in-law who was effectively fired for harassment didn't have great job prospects. And since they had been so arrogant, they had no friends to help them. Ken was also found by the CEO, who was furious about his daughter being deceived. He was put on a fishing boat to work and pay the compensation. After that, I've been living freely in this small house. I don't feel suffocated anymore. I don't think I want to get married for a while. My best friend, Emily, who's always concerned about me, still comes over to hang out. I want to enjoy the moments in this house with her and live a peaceful life. The miserable and regrettable times and the times filled with hatred are over. I felt a gentle breeze brushing against my cheek. I'm here! I naturally turned towards the voice and smiled. My dream is to create a place where my family could always be happy. Now, I want to keep moving forward and live without forgetting to smile.